I'll ask the clerk to take the roll call.
Trustee Cawthorn. Here. O'Brien Berglund. Here. Klein.
Here.
President Larson. Trustee Thomas.
Here.
Whalen. Here. Zappa.
Yes.
All here.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to review and approve the minutes from the regular board meeting of March 27th and the reorg meeting of April 24th.
Could we just change one date on the reorg meeting of the Board of Review from May 28th to May 29th?
Since May 28th is a holiday.
Yes, I don't think anybody's going to be here.
Oh, May 20th to May 29th.
Did everybody pick up on that?
Oh, okay, yeah.
That
There
was,
we go.
Okay.
Well, I'll move acceptance of the regular board trustees meeting minutes of Tuesday, March 27th, 2007. And at the same time, approval of the annual reorganization meeting on Tuesday, April 24th, 2007.
I'll second that with the recognition that we're
Heather.
changing the date of the Board of Review meeting to the 29th. That should be in the motion.
Sure.
Any other comments or corrections regarding the minutes? All in favor of the motion, then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Comments from the floor? Okay. Seeing none, request for extraterritorial CSM escrow waiver by Ron Cavillius. As you may have noticed, there is a request which is coming directly by Ron. It's not coming through the Plan Commission. Note indicates it does not have to go through the Plan Commission. Is that correct?
For the reduction of the escrow, no.
Okay. I can't remember, is there a
And
dollar?
I believe Kevin may be able to talk.
Can you speak to this issue, Kevin? Okay.
Yeah, this basically is you guys to, since it's within 1.5 miles of your corporate limits, he has to come through to the Plan Commission for approval.
Mhm.
And it's a 2-lot certified survey map that they're proposing to doing. And since it's so far outside of the corporate limits, I feel that our comments from our particular company are gonna be pretty minimal. And so we're not looking for charging any
Mhm.
review fees for doing that, so I have no problem with make a recommendation for a reduction in the escrow amount.
What would it be reduced to?
Typically, it's per lot, it's $1,000 per lot. Since it's a 2-lot certified survey map, it would be $2,000 is what would be required for an escrow amount.
So what would it be reduced to?
I guess on our end, there would be no review fees. I think we need to look at Tom just to see if there's anything legality issues or, any fees that possibly be coming from their end of it. I would be really surprised if there was, but
Okay. Now, even if we were to reduce the escrow amount, and if there were fees incurred by the village, whether it was your organization or whether it was for legal work, we would still, Ron would still be required to reimburse us for that expense, right?
I mean, you might want to consider, keeping yourself maybe a few dollars just to be safe. Probably something that's pretty minimal, $100, $200.
I
If
guess-
I don't know how it's worked in the past because I know there has been requests before to what it's been reduced.
Why wouldn't all of that go through the town of Hudson?
Because we're involved in this extraterritorial land issue. we might decide to have, the village engineers do something at our request, so we'd have to pay for that. We could have Tom review something.
Yeah,
We'd have to
I
pay for
understand
that. So
Okay.
that's why we would have an escrow.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Okay, I was thinking somebody might have to go out there to look at it from a building inspector point of view or something, but that's not our problem.
That's not our problem, technically.
Brian Worth was already out there to look at it.
Yeah, and that's,
And he signed off on it as far
Yeah.
as he was concerned.
Okay.
Kevin, are you suggesting that the escrow amount be $200?
I think you want to, probably just to cover yourself, to have some kind of a dollar amount there.
Well, I'm just picking up the number that you had mentioned.
Mhm.
Is that adequate? And I think Gloria would like to respond to that too.
I would say 200, 250 with the contingency, it be approved with the contingency if there are any, unexpected expenses that he would be liable above and, if it became above and beyond that amount.
Kathy, do you have that? That sounds like a good motion. You can
Yeah.
put me down as making the motion.
Okay.
Ron, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, other than I'm just waiting, to get the approval from you people. It's like I did, town hall's already approved it, and the county more or less has approved it. They're just waiting for two things, the signature from you people, and, what was the other one here? Attached treasurer's certificate, which is taken care of by the town board already. So actually, it's just the one thing now, and that's your
Okay.
approval.
Kevin, can I ask a question here? Sure. We're reducing the escrow, but does he still need to be approved through
Yeah.
plan?
Yep,
for
he
the
still has
rest
to go
of-
through the approval process
Okay,
for
I
your
just wanted
signature
to-
on it. Yep. And that's scheduled for this month's plan commission meeting, so.
Okay.
So the motion is to reduce, George, you had the motion to reduce the escrow amount
$250.
to $250
And with the contingencies that,
with the contingencies,
the
okay?
additional fees that have ante up.
Okay.
No,
Was there a second to that? Any further comments or questions?
I have one question about escrow in general. If an amount of money is escrowed and we use some of it or none of it at a predetermined time, is that given back to him?
We send a confirmation to the attorney's office and to the engineer's office asking if there will be any further expenses that they're aware of. We take off any newspaper article, like for public hearings, and then return it to them. But we usually wait until we're pretty sure there will be no bills coming through.
I strongly feel that we should retain something so that we, as long as he's gonna get it back regardless. I mean, I'm sure that, I think it's wise to have something so that we don't end up having to scramble to get that. But I guess I would go along with the motion if you strongly feel that $250 or whatever is enough money.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion to reduce the contingency to $250, or to reduce the escrow to $250 with the contingencies as described in the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Plan Commission recommendations. I don't believe we actually have any recommendations coming out of the Plan Commission. So we'll move on to Finance Committee. Claims approval requested. Let's see.
George made a motion, didn't you, for that?
Let me read it again. I'll move to approve the April non-reoccurring claims of $70,260.74 and reoccurring claims of $431.48 with total claims of $70,692.22.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made to pay our bills. Anyone have any questions regarding any of the claims for the month? Okay, if not, we'll do a roll call vote, starting over here. Sandra?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay. Authorization for the administrator to solicit loan bids for the Siren and Public Works land reclamation. Just for purposes of the audience, during the Finance Committee meeting, Finance Committee recommended authorizing loan solicitation for the Siren, but since the Public Works or the land reclamation issue has not been decided, nor has a specific recommendation been brought forward, we're not gonna be authorizing the village administrator to solicit a loan for that at this point in time. So I believe that our recommendation was, from the Finance Committee, was to authorize the administrator to solicit a loan in the amount up to $20,000 for a borrowing period of 7 years without prepayment penalties. So I would make that motion. Or a second?
I'll
Okay.
second.
I'm very glad personally to see this motion, because I think we've had a deficiency in the sound capability of our siren system over the village, particularly as this area has developed over the last 15 to 20 years. And I know there's been discussion, if you look back in agendas going way back, the replacement of the siren's been on the capital budget for several years, but it's always gotten taken out, so I'm glad to see that put back in.
Make a comment?
Sure.
If you go to the public safety section of your book, you'll see old business warning siren. And I'd just like to read this for the record. The warning siren authorized as a capital project has been ordered from Federal Signal Corp. And is slated for installation probably in the next, Gloria, a week or so. The new siren will be erected on a new pole, which will be rated properly and stand several feet taller than the current siren. It'll put out 130 decibels of sound to include coverage of the areas which were not developed when the old siren was rated and installed. This will be a much better siren than what we have been not experiencing.
Okay.
Excuse me? The chief is here. Mark, you want to?
I believe it's around 110, somewhere there. But it'll be higher,
We should
Okay.
clarify for the people watching TV, the question was, what was the decibel rating of the old siren? And it was just over 100, about 110 decibels, so we'll gain 20 decibels. My question would be, is this operated in conjunction with Hudson's warning system? So they'll operate simultaneously, or we'll have our own operations?
All right, I'm gonna ask the chief if he'll come up to the microphone and explain this, because it's not a simple yes or no.
Oh, okay. Should I open a can of worms there?
No, not really, it's an excellent question.
No, it's
It
just,
is a good question, Jim, and I think we talked a lot about it during the public safety meeting. Basically, the siren, all the sirens in St. Croix County are activated simultaneously. So if there's an alert that's coming from the Twin Cities area and coming east, North Hudson obviously is going to be one of the first ones that are going to be hit by it most probably. Our siren goes off, but so does the one in Glenwood City, New Richmond, and then of course they may opt to reissue that warning when it's getting closer to Glenwood City. And so even though we may have sunny skies because the storm has moved through, the siren's going off here because it's in a warning for Glenwood City. It's just a way that the emergency management has set up to make sure that we don't miss anybody, so that the entire St. Croix County is under one button. If New Richmond needs to be pushed, it's one button and everybody gets the alert. And just to make sure that if there is a small cell that's coming south and maybe they're not tracking it as well, we're still going to be aware of the fact that there's some dangerous storms or some dangerous weather in the area. So I guess if that answers your question, we're basically on the same system as Hudson.
Okay.
So
Beautiful, it's good to
And
know.
where will this one be located?
in the exact same spot that the old one is.
That was asked earlier.
Yeah, which is on the corner of Lemon and Michelson Street.
Beautiful, thank you very much.
all right, it's not technically a spending decision, it's really just authorization, so I don't think we need to do a roll call. We've already approved the loan concept in the capital spending plan. So all in favor of the motion to authorize the administrator to solicit loan bids signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to Public Works.
Were we going to talk about the land reclamation
We,
in this meeting?
I don't think we really can.
Well, it's on here.
No,
It's
it's not.
authorization.
I think when Larry started off, he addressed the fact that we're just going to separate those two out and,
Yeah.
at this point, wait
Okay.
at this point.
I was thinking we talked
Yeah.
at finance, we were gonna bring it up for discussion, and maybe have a group take responsibility for pulling some stuff together and getting back
That's
to
a
the
point,
board.
that's a good point, yeah. Who would be in charge of that?
This is authorization for loans, though.
Yeah,
To
this
be
is an authorization for
Public Works.
loans. It is not a discussion on what to do with it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. George is correct. Good point. Moving on to Public Works.
All right, first thing is crosswalk painting. There should be something in your in the Public Works there from Bergman Companies for $2,225. And, looking for the right part of the meeting minutes.
Got it right in the
For
front.
crosswalk, painting, we propose that Bergman Companies, Inc., be authorized, to spend $2,225 to Bergman Companies, Inc., to repaint 19 crosswalks and lay out and paint one new crosswalk. That is a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
This is the same company we've used in the past, is it not?
What's that?
It's the same company that we've used in the past.
I think it
They
is,
did
Mark,
that
is that
last year.
correct?
Yes, because we've used Bergman companies in past years. Basically, we had two different companies that was doing our crosswalk painting for us in different years. One of them is no longer doing the painting. Bergman's is the company that, we've had the best luck with in my house. Basically, for this new crosswalk that Public Safety wants is only $85 more than what it was last year to paint the 19 existing crosswalks we had. So.
Is this the majority of the crosswalks in the village?
Basically, yes, we are painting all the crosswalks in the village. There's 19 current plus one new one requested by Public Safety.
Yeah, we have to repaint them all every year, I think.
No, it's appropriate. Any other questions on this one? Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the bid for, to paint the crosswalks. So we'll, since that's a spending decision, we'll do it as a roll call. Start over here this time. Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark? Sandra?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay.
Okay, the next item for Public Works is hiring of a temporary park employee, request for approval. And the Public Works Committee, at least a couple of them with Mark Ekblad, interviewed 3 candidates on April 16th. And they're recommending that the Board of, and this is the motion, recommending the Board of Trustees allow the Public Works Department to hire Mr. Doug DiNucci for the part-time Public Works position.
Did you run it in the time, dollar amount?
Between 24 and 32 hours per week at $10 per hour.
Okay, that's part of the motion, and hopefully
Is that right?
that got picked up.
Mark,
PA
when we were
system.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
That's
Joe.
okay.
I couldn't remember what the cap was, but I know it was 24 to 32 hours.
Well, we're talking 24, 32 hours. Basically, the budget amount for this position is $5,000 at $10 an hour.
For the entire period during the summer.
So regardless of the hours, you know, obviously, we cap it at 600, but also at, with the dollar amount within the budget, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Comments or questions regarding?
Larry had brought up the question during the finance meeting about how much of his work would be performed for the parks and how much for public works, to differentiate the spend, or where the funds would come from for payment?
Majority of his work will be in parks.
Majority, okay. But it will still be split somewhat
There
between
might be
both.
some public works, but I'm looking more at his position, more as parks, as far as mowing, maintaining, putting in equipment, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Okay. Since there's no other questions, we'll vote on it. Again, we'll do a roll call vote. Start over here. Sandra?
Yes.
Yes.
George? Colleen?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mark? Yes. Okay. Water valves?
Okay, you'll see as part of your packet, an issue statement. On the back of the issue statement is a proposal from Zappa Brothers Excavation Incorporated to replace 2 water valves. They're not cheap. They're roughly $5,000 apiece, and essentially they do need to be replaced. If you have any particulars on that, Mark Ekblad can answer any questions on it. But the motion that we have is to accept the proposal we recommend that the village board accept the proposal from Zappa Brothers Excavation, Inc. of $9,422 to replace 2 water valves.
Second.
And that includes, obviously, digging down through the street and getting these valves out of there and
Somebody had
replacing.
raised the practical question, Mark, in the finance committee meeting, which says no one's questioned that the valves need to be replaced. If the valves are not working,
Basically, what we have here is we have one valve at Sixth Street, just north of Michelson, is basically the valve, according to the hydrant that's next to it, the valve was installed about 1937. We know that valve, well, basically, if it's not in a certain position when it's fully opened, it will leak all the time. There's just one little certain spot. We know that valve does not hold, will not fully close, means even if we are shutting down that valve, we're still getting flow through it. That's telling us that we have a problem, that we cannot, control the system. We would have to do a shutdown to do maintenance. That's why we're requesting to replace that one. The other valve was put in basically in 1981. We are unsure, because we don't have the as-built on what type of valve it was. But right now, we have no control of that valve at all. If we would have to shut down in emergency, or do any repairs, because the operating nut on the top of the valve is completely broken off and gone. It apparently snapped at the stem. So what we're requesting is to be able to, if we would have some kind of emergency, to be able to shut down and try to keep as many people in water as we can. We are asking to have these 2 valves replaced.
how did you know that there was a problem?
What we do is, basically the valve on Sixth Street, we've had, because of the number of leaks that we've had in that area the last 3 years, we've known we've had a problem with that valve. The other valve, because we do a yearly go around inspecting valves, actually operate all the valves in the village, making sure everything works and everything else. That's when it was found out during the operation inspection that that valve was no longer in service. The only thing we could figure is sometime when we were exercising that valve, it snapped from the stem, and the guys didn't realize it until they came back next time and went to go operate it again, and the operating nut was completely gone.
What's the time frame on, assuming my colleagues will approve this expenditure for these 2 valves, when will they be able to do the job?
With my discussion with Gary, because this is basically a distribution system, it's considered a priority to keep the system in line. It'll be taken care of within the next 30 days.
Very good. Thank you.
Does this get charged to the 210 or the 201 fund?
This will get charged a 210 fund.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this one?
Just a little discussion, just so everybody understands the complexity and what's done here. This is an involved project. They have to reroute traffic. They do have to completely open up the street, get in, replace these. This bid of $94.22 includes a charge of $964 for being able to do both of them at the same time, which does help the village out a little bit. Also, just for comment, it also includes complete restoration of the street, new bituminous, everything. So when they're done, it's a done deal. So it's not just putting in a valve and walking away from it.
Just with one other thing, it was, will require when we were doing the Michelson, or actually the 6th Street valve and everything else, they really required a detouring of Highway 35 on the 4th Street North to do that project. At that time, when we actually go to replace that valve, we will be shutting water off to roughly about 60 homes, from basically everybody from Summers Street North to Monroe Street North.
During the day for?
Yes, will be done during the daytime. They will get notice. We will give them 2 days' notice prior to thing, along with instructions what to do as far as trying to take care of their hot water heaters, shutting off their inside valves.
2 days notice?
Yeah, we will give them roughly 2 days' notice.
So if
We are
people
required by
vacation-
the state to give them at least 24 hours
No, I was
notice
thinking
before
of
we
giving
shut off.
people a little bit more notice.
Yeah,
If I'm,
well.
if I'm gonna lose my water, I'd like to
Yeah,
know.
well, we go to door and everything else, and we actually bring out notices and then we actually put on the doors.
How long will they be shut down?
That depends on type of work. What we always do is, basically, we give them an 8-hour notice. We'll be shutting the water off roughly about 8 o'clock at night and be back on by 4. We give them anywhere from 8 to a 10-hour notice.
Okay.
But,
You do it during the day?
it will be done during the day.
Okay, 8 in the morning until 4
Yeah,
in the afternoon?
because basically, most people are gone,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
for work and
But
stuff
your
like that.
expectation is you can get it done in a day?
Yes. Actually, as far as the valve, that's why we're better off going in and just, what we're gonna do is, and what's included in the bid, what myself and Gary discussed is, we're actually better off putting a sleeve along with the bell, with the valve itself. That means we're cutting out a bigger section of the main than just replacing the valve. But we can have it all together up on top, and when we put it down there, we just slide it together, bolt it all back in place, and it's faster.
Okay.
Plus, we can have it all, it can actually be clarified and cleaned out and everything else, so it's all ready to go in. It's actually
Okay.
ready, back T solid before they go in. That's why we're planning on doing both.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Mark.
Do we have to give some kind of public notice to let people that commute on that road know that it's gonna be closed for that day, or just let them?
Yes, we will. We will have to, actually, I will have to notify the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. We'll have to fill out a detour permit to actually move the traffic over to 4th Street. And that's something we go through anytime we do a project like this. We have to do that.
I'll do it.
So,
That's
yeah.
great. It sounds like you've got it under control. Thanks, Mark. Wow, big project.
Mark, if this was an emergency, namely this valve had actually broken, we're spewing water, thousands of gallons of water being spewed, you just go in and fix it. I mean, do you need a permit in a situation
No.
like that?
An emergency situation like a sinkhole or anything else on 35 or a water main break or something like that, no. All we do is I have a number I call to DOT, and they're verbal. They give me a verbal permit saying, do whatever you have to do to
Very good.
detour traffic.
Okay, thank you.
And at that time, then, actually, the chief is more involved, because what it comes down to is when I get the permit thing, I notify him, and then he's the one that,
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Now we'll vote on this. All in favor, just indicate by saying yes. Start over here. Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes?
Mark? Sandra?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Larry? Yes.
Next item on the list is road repairs, Station Lane North, Station Circle North, and Summers Landing. And Kevin, could you hand out that couple pages that shows a map as well as your spreadsheet there for that project? And while he's doing that, I'll just, I'll give a background on this project. The streets out in, on Station Circle North, Summers Landing, and Station Lane have been in need of repair for some time. And for those of you who are new to the board, I guess this last time, I don't know that anybody is, but we've talked about this, and we've actually had it on the referendum in November last year to reconstruct those streets out there, the entire subdivision, I guess is what you would call it, or the two subdivisions. And it was voted down by the village. Nonetheless, the streets still need repair. There are several spots on one particular street that there's significant potholes, and there's hardly any asphalt left on those certain areas. And so the Public Works has been trying to figure out what can we do out there aside from just putting some asphalt in the potholes periodically. The street does need to be fixed. And at first, we looked at, I see you've got two handouts. At first, we looked at cutting out about I think there were 5 sections. And we were estimating a total of $42,000 to do that. And we thought about that a great deal in Public Works, and we're thinking about what does that do to the remaining street area out there. And unfortunately, what it really means is we will have to do this kind of repair on a continuing basis. And so, well, we might spend $42,000 to repair 5 sections. The street still is in not good repair. And so we would be doing this in the foreseeable future. You might even have to spend twice that much in one particular year. And so we didn't think it was a good long-term solution, and so we said, what is a long-term solution? And we do need to reconstruct, the street. And so what we came up with in Public Works was to reconstruct actually the worst part of the street. And there is I think I have here, the southern portions of Station Lane and Station Circle North, and also the western portion of Summers Landing Road. We feel that we can have that reconstructed. And there's a map that shows that. That's in the second handout. You can see what portions of the street that we would be doing there. And so we want the contractors to do that for a sum not to exceed $145,000, which is roughly what our engineering organization has estimated the cost to be. So that, we feel, is the best thing that we can do in this instance. And not only does it repair the street, but also the people that live along that street will be picking up a portion of that street's replacement cost. So 50% of that $145,000 will be picked up by, I don't know how many homeowners, but whoever lives across the street. The village will be picking up roughly $72,000. If we had gone on and just repaired the street as we needed to, all of those costs would be picked up by the village alone, and none would be assessed to any of the property owners, because we're just doing repair. So not only does this really get at repairing the worst part of the street, but it also makes it fair to the village as well as fair to the individuals that live on the street, that they're assessed for repair of that street and reconstruction of that street, and the village doesn't have to pick up any more cost on that area than they normally would. So we thought that would be the best thing that we can do. For those that are interested in what we would do for the remaining portion of the street, we think that that remaining portions of the street will probably survive a year or two longer. We'll just see what has to happen with that. If there's potholes out there, we'll fix them. If there's bigger areas, we may cut them out and replace them. But for right now, we're not prepared to decide what we want to do with the remaining portions of those streets out there. And so the motion that I have is we recommend to the Board of Trustees to authorize repair of Station Circle North and Summers Landing Streets, as well as Summers Landing Streets, for a sum not to exceed $145,000 per the March 2007 specifications from Cedar Corporation.
You want to include in there the 50%?
And 50% of that will be assessed to the to the property owners.
I'll second.
Discussion or question?
Just like to make a comment, same comment I made at the Finance Committee meeting. We as trustees are elected to do many things in this village, and one of those things is to maintain a road system. We maintain a water system and are responsible for maintaining that as we are our roads. We're responsible for keeping them in usable condition. I went out there, I've been out there a couple times recently anticipating that this was coming up, and I'll tell you quite frankly, I went out on my motorcycle and I was dodging potholes just to avoid the pits. We have a responsibility to maintain these roads, and these roads in this area have been woefully overlooked over the past decade. It's time that we do something about it. It's long overdue.
Is there a minimum depth or a maximum depth on the blacktop that they're gonna lay out there, do you know? Because of the cost, keeping it down, keep it narrow. Cause I walk on that street a lot, and the blacktop that's there is not that thick.
It's very thin.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, what's out there currently is, it's roughly about 2.5 inches of asphalt that sits out there now. And with all the street projects that we've done, like St. Croix Street, Helen Street, Cratley Lane, where those particular streets are with a 3-inch surface, and that's what we're proposing with this particular project too.
Do we really need to do 3? I mean, since I live there, I happen to know what the traffic pattern is, and it is so light. And it's the only thing that's kept that road serviceable for the last 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's only the people who come and go from those 2 developments. Occasionally you get a truck through there, but I mean during the daytime you can go for hours, day after day. Nobody, because it's just not a thoroughfare for anybody.
With a lot of the other.
I like his question in the context of keeping costs down for everybody if we end up doing this. Is it much cost difference? That's number one. Number two, having attended a couple of other meetings with some of my peers in the towns, I know they're dialing back the amount of road repair that they're doing simply because of the levy limits, and then the cost of the asphalt has just gone up so dramatically in the last 12 to 20 months, whatever the period of time is. Is this definitely enough money to cover just that section of road that really is bad?
We do have a 10% contingency on the particular number. I think it's roughly about $13,000, just for flexibility, especially with the way the asphalt prices are now. I guess we're going to actually, go out and bid the project, and once we have those final numbers, then maybe we can add a little bit more street. Maybe we have to just cut down a little bit, but with those numbers that we have there, I feel real comfortable that we're going to be able to do those 2 different areas that we're.
We're also doing this a little different. We're putting a cap on the bid. If you can't do it at that price, don't even bid. Instead of having an open bid this project, where this bid, as Joe said, is not to exceed X amount.
Okay.
So Kevin, I want to come back to what the question this gentleman asked and Larry echoed. It was the thickness of that asphalt.
With it being 2.5 inches out there currently, and what we see in other municipalities, different villages and cities with residential districts, they're going with a minimum of 3 inches of asphalt. It's basically going to be put down in 2 different lifts. You can put down the 1.5 inch of binder. You can let it sit. Let some of the settlement actually come out of the subgrade base course. I think you end up with a better product by doing it with 2 different lifts. I know there has been some truck traffic through there. I think Mark has.
Basically, the biggest thing is if you're gonna go with anything smaller than a 3-inch lift, then I recommend that the village have something in their thing that in the springtime that is actually signed as far as weight limitations.
Yeah,
I
the
think you gotta
village
remember that,
doesn't have any
first of
weight
all, if you,
limitation.
3 inch, anything less than 3 inches, you have the, you know, the frost factor in the winter,
Frost factor.
which is awfully deteriorative.
Mhm.
And the preparation, laying asphalt is, and getting the road ready to go, so if you're gonna do it, I wouldn't do less than 3 inches, because it's, you get down to a, as it drops down, that just becomes a ribbon of asphalt out there that may look good for a couple of years, but it, the integrity is gone, and with the two lift process, it's kinda like laminating. So you get a little more strength that way, so I can't see, going down to 2 inches just to save a couple of dollars. If we can do it for that, that's great. Otherwise, you're gonna be fixing that road a lot sooner,
Mhm.
regardless of the traffic. It's just a standard you have to stick with.
Okay.
If I could jump
His was
in.
a good question, and I just wanted to explore it as
Yeah.
well, because I know it's a
Yeah.
No,
very
that's-
lightly.
that's a very good-
Interject something in here. I
Very
think
good question.
what George mentioned is in the last probably decade and a half, that street has not been maintained. It has not been seal coated since, I think, 1987 or 1988, something like that. And my feeling is if it would have been seal coated, we might not even be talking about this now. And it had about a 2 inch surface on it, I think is all. We didn't have 3 inches of asphalt out there.
No, no.
And so, and it lasted roughly 30 years with 2 inches of asphalt and the city traffic that was going on there and very, very little maintenance. So my feeling is if we do this right and then start seal coating our streets when they should be seal coated, there's no reason why our streets can't really last, much longer than 30 years unless they got a lot of traffic on them. I think that road out there, if it would have been maintained, even though it was only 2 inches, could have lasted much, much longer than it did.
Sandra, do you have any comments on this? Have you looked at the road?
Yeah, I've been out there.
Colleen, comments or questions for?
I've been out there, it does need repair.
Hmm?
It does need repair. We've been out there on our bikes.
You got lost?
No. We've tried to circle a couple times, but find our way out.
What's the range of property owners that would be assessed the fees for this?
The people that live along the road.
How far? I mean,
Directly.
not on the corner.
If it goes by your street, if you live on that street, and then you're gonna get assessed.
Yeah, it-
Corner lot.
If you have a corner lot,
It's basically
we're gonna
the
be talking about that. We obviously have to have a
brown and the
public
blue
hearing on
area.
that.
That's what's been,
Um,
There's assessment ordinances.
There's a couple of different ways
Those
that we can do
parcels.
that. We have not talked about that in Public Works as to how we're going to make those assessments.
Joe, to be clear, we don't decide how to do them. There's assessment policies that,
I know, but there's two different ways that we
no,
can.
I know, but I
Do
don't
that. Right.
make it clear that
Okay.
really, I don't have the answers for it, but it's a policy that's been used all the time for every project.
Is it the whole orange here? Just the orange?
What's this one?
Here's the orange end. I think that's appropriate, then, to just comment on that for those who have a map, it's the orange end, so if you live on an orange or a blue street,
Just
Yeah.
before. That's big.
I think I just want to close just by a couple things. I really agree with what George said. We have a responsibility to uphold the services that the community provides. And just doing a little bit of quick math, if you divide the 3 inches into half-inch layers, it basically breaks down to about $12,000 to $13,000 per half inch. So if you went to 2.5 inches in a $150,000 project, you're saving just over $10,000. I think if you gain an extra 5 years by doing 3 inches, the math just shows it's simple common sense. And in looking at that road, it is by far exceeded its life expectancy, and there's just no question it's, in my mind, the worst road in North Hudson. So I'm strongly support this, and I think it's a wise move.
Did you say the worst neighborhood in North Hudson?
Is there working with?
Kevin, is there any way to just do patching?
Yeah, and I think we did have we went out there and took a look at the worst areas. And I think that was the first handout. We slated like 5 different areas that we seen were probably by far the worst throughout all those streets.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there are some areas where the asphalt is literally almost gone all the way
Yep.
across the road, so I understand that. So why don't we just patch it?
Well, I think when you take a look at your pacer rating, it is a number 4. And when you look at the manual, it actually is calling out for a mill and an overlay, a reconstruct. I mean, the street is just that particularly far gone. You're starting to see all those alligator cracks, especially along the shoulders and things, and then the pavement is just basically wearing completely away. So I think with the pacer being a 4, and what the manual is suggesting, and what we're seeing out there, that's your best.
So you don't recommend doing a patch?
Because we actually went out there and took some core samples of some of the, and it's highlighted on that first map, just to see what the thickness of the asphalt was along with the base course. Some of the area along Summers Landing, that particular aggregate looked to what you would see with what's being placed down there now for Wisconsin DOT standards. But once you get up on Station Lane, Station Circle, that particular aggregate just seems like it's got a lot of fines, and we actually took a sample of it just to compare what it would look, according to standards that are out there for DOT, and it actually did fail. So we're looking at actually taking that material completely out and putting back 6 inches of new aggregate under that section of roadway.
Hey, Kevin, while you're at the microphone, you can see this map, but this area number 3 up here where Station Circle and Station Lane come together, is that addressed in this as a repair, or is that just a public works patch that just gets done on a separate road maintenance
Yeah.
basis?
That estimate does not include that little area up there. And a lot of it's, 3 to 4 inches of thickness out there currently, and typically on the streets that we've been doing, in the 2002 project, 6 inches of aggregate. We're gonna reclaim as much as we possibly can the asphalt surface out there now, through a milling and pulverizing, to try to save some dollars there, and then just supplement with new material that would be hauled in, imported in, to try to keep the cost down as much as we possibly can.
How long would you estimate that a project like this would take?
I would think about a month you would see everything completed. Just to be on the conservative side, it could go quite a bit faster than that, but, the coordination between the general for putting the base and excavating out and then getting the paving crews in, month, if everything worked out, depending on the weather and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, to go through the assessment process.
We should set that up as soon as we can.
Assuming it passes this phase.
That's right. Thank you for that.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll do another roll call vote. The motion is is it to authorize the repairs? All right, so we'll start over here. Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark? Sandra?
Yes.
Bill? George?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay.
Just as a point of order, can we go out for bids now, or do we have to wait for the public hearing to be over? Anybody know that?
I think it's in the best interest that you would go through that public hearing
first.
process first.
Okay.
Public safety?
Got some interesting things to share with you tonight, although they're in the meeting minutes from the Public Safety meeting of Thursday, April 12th. I'd like to bring to your attention a couple things. At that meeting, we had a visit from Judge Wopat. And as you read that, I wonder if you might have had some questions about the, not only proposal, but what he's moving ahead with. And that is to go after what I call those people who scoff at the fines, tickets, the summonses that they get when they're speeding through the village, running stop signs, whatever. And you can see that the amount that we're looking at here is something on the order of around $28,000 that is sort of owed to the village. And so this is part of a program that has had the support not only from our local police department, but also from Sheriff Hillstead, and is being done in other municipalities in the area. Mark, anything you want to add to that? Just, we're going to try to go after those people who don't recognize their obligations. We've already talked about the warning siren. I'm taking a look now at the chief's report. You'll notice that the St. Croix Underage Drinking Coalition has received quite a sizable grant, and the North Hudson Police Department will receive reimbursement for overtime and equipment in an amount of not to exceed $7,700. So just a word to those who are underage who happen to be tuning in tonight. There is money available for overtime and equipment to catch you as you drive drunk through the village. Was that all right that I said that?
Not now.
That's all right, that's good.
All right.
All right. We also have received a grant for a thermal, and I gotta read this because I wanna make sure I get Thermovision Scout. We've already got one, this is the second one, is that correct, Chief?
Roughly correct.
Roughly correct, all right. And, but this is
We have one or we have two?
yeah,
It's a different type of thermal.
it's a different type, okay. But I wanted to be clear that this is, that the monies for this is from a grant, including all the training that the chief will receive on that. We have a new officer on board, and I've met him at his swearing-in ceremony. It happened to coincide with the motorcycle run that we had here in the village. And it was interesting. Mark, was he around to actually experience that? Oh, he left early. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping he would have been here for that. Of course, then he might have changed his mind. But you can read a little bit about him, as he's quite a family man, and they are looking forward to moving here into the village. And that's my chair update. The next is the item Village Hall Addition Remodel Plan Update. The month of May is going to be very busy for the Building Management Committee. I'd like to go through just a few of the things that we're going to be involved with. On May 8th, we have the Board of Appeals, where we will be looking for variance. We then have the Park Board meeting that we've invited ourselves to, Colleen. Did you know that?
No, but that's fine.
All right, and at that Park Board meeting, what we'd like to share with you, and I'm giving you a little idea of what we want to share with you now, is what our architect, Elliot, has planned. It's a great design. I can show you the pictures of it if you'd like, but I'll just describe it. We're going to need the building, of course, has to be handicapped accessibility. Because we're moving the entrance, that is the vestibule, a little bit further, a little bit closer to the street, that increases the angle. And so the angle is a little bit greater than what is acceptable for wheelchair accessibility of the building. So what we have to do is have a nice runway. If you were to look right out the window here, to go to the north, and then a little bit to the east, then to the south and into the building. And that plot of land that will be defined looks like it would be an ideal place to have that memorial park. We can put 2-3 flagpoles on that. We have to have a wall there. Well, we don't have to have a wall. We have to have handrails anyway. And we've got in mind a nice design for a wall upon which you'd be able to put memorial plaques. And so we'll be making that presentation to the park board on May 14th, see if Elliott can go forward with that as part of the design. Now, part of that also, part of the reason that we would like to bring this before the park board would also be to see if the park board could help fund that piece. We're looking for funds. We may have to have a bake sale, but
I'll get to that.
we'll also be going before the Plan Commission on the Wednesday, the 16th, and with the presentation also to be soliciting input and approval to continue. And that's where we are with the building.
That's good.
If you have any questions, we have, I think, we've got several members. I see Wally's here. He's on the committee, and Chief, and Gloria, myself. And Mark Ekblad is here also. Anybody? Okay.
Good, thank you. You have one more item, go ahead.
One more item, and that has to do with Mr. Zappa and his fireworks. This is the same as we approved last time, or last year. Is that right, Mark?
I believe so.
It's the same, yeah. And there is an issue statement, it's the last page in the public safety section. And I'll make the motion, move to approve the application for the fireworks paraphernalia sale permit for Mark Zappa, subject to approval from the appropriate Hudson Fire Department representatives, and with the following inclusions: no smoking signs must be displayed, fire extinguishers available, no fireworks sold to persons under the age of 18 years of age. Permit length to be May 1st, 2007, which is today, and for 1 year, till April 30th, 2008. Is that correct, Mark?
I believe so, George.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? No? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Public welfare? Who wants to do it?
Well, I'll, the part I know, which is,
Spring cleanup, leaf and yard waste pickup, will be Monday and Tuesday, May 7th and 8th, with carryover onto the 9th if needed. And same as last fall, curbside, regular size bags, organic yard waste only.
And everyone should have their bags out there by 6 a.m. on the 7th, because we don't know where the trucks are gonna go,
Yeah,
how
that'll
long
be,
they'll be on which street. So if everybody has it out there,
it's a different truck than the regular pickup truck, so.
And, because somebody had pointed this out to me last year, and I think we've already addressed it. If they don't get it all picked up by the 8th, because they intend to pick them up on the 7th and 8th, last time they had so much pickup, they literally ran out of capacity on the trucks and dumping. But so they came back the third day. So if you don't get picked up
That's
on
why
the
I said the
second day,
9th would be
just leave it
a
out.
possibility. Yes, leave it out. It will get picked up eventually.
Okay.
but if they go by your house on Monday morning and it's not out there, they won't be back on Tuesday. Because last year we split the village in half.
And then I pass the baton to Jim.
Thank you. With some instruction, I hope.
I didn't get any. Well, I'm still on your committee, though.
All right. Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. Colleen?
Okay, the park board had two issues or recommendations we'd like approved. The first being, as George alluded to, in September of 2005, the village approved a Veterans Memorial Park in Webster Park. At that time, nothing has been done. And with the new remodeling to the village hall, we felt it'd be a more appropriate location would be for a Veterans Memorial at the Village Hall. But since it was already approved, we need to get approval. We didn't come up with any idea as to what it would be, where it would be, just to move it. And as far as financing, the veterans will probably help pay for it, so it's not, and whatever else can come out of the park board too. So basically then, we're recommending that we incorporate a Veterans Memorial at the Village Hall instead of Webster Park.
Is there a second?
It sounds like, I'll second, it sounds like a much more suitable place for it too. Webster Park is so tree-filled or parking lot. So it's,
Well, that's what
It's
we
a
felt.
nice respectable place.
It's more visible, and also, with that park, with kids running through there and playing and using it as a BMX route and that sort of thing.
Since you said
I
that,
don't
can I
think it'll
bring
get
up
much
something
use.
about Webster Park, or would it be appropriate to do that later?
I think we have to do that later since it's recommendations.
Okay.
I couldn't determine from reading your minutes, what does the memorial look like?
It doesn't yet. I mean, it's just, they had decided a couple years ago to have a Veterans Memorial in North Hudson, and it was decided to do it at Webster Park. Since then, nothing has been done about it. So it's still in the planning and discussion phase, so nothing's been decided as to what it would look like.
Did the veteran, was it the local VFW came to us?
One of, John Helgeson
Yeah.
is on the park board, and I think he's the one who originally brought it up. And he has some ideas as to what it could be done, but nothing has been figured out since we first wanted to get it moved to this location. And then it'll go from there as to what, and he plans on getting, the various veterans organizations involved and having them help with financing and just kind of deciding what the vision of it would be.
Yeah, okay. Because my first thought was, certainly have no reservations
Yeah.
with having the memorial here. Now, having said that, since I have no idea what this is gonna look like, and if it's like the black wall, we got a problem.
It's interesting you would say the black wall, because I think you're alluding to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking size, that's all.
Okay.
No, it's not thinking anything that elaborate.
What I was describing earlier was an area where we have, this is the handicap path. And in the middle of this, instead of just having bare handrail, that there be a monument, we don't know what to call it yet, so
Yeah.
we're calling it, for want of a better name, the monument wall. And you can have your flag poles in here, and it'd be appropriate to put something in here,
Okay.
in this area. And what we, if you will, pass that over to Colleen.
No, I was just trying to get some
Preliminary.
feel for scope,
Yeah.
before we say,
No,
yeah, let's
no.
put it here.
We've talked briefly about the height of it and so on, but that, we'll have a little more detail on that later.
And somebody else has agreed to pay for this?
Well, the park board will work on that, either with getting funds from the vets to help fund it, or coming out of the park board
Okay.
budget.
Basically, with my discussion with John Helgeson, because John is both with both VFW and with the American Legion, what they're basically looking at is something like, what, if you've been out to the government center,
Yeah.
in front of the government center where they got the little monument and a couple flag poles,
Yeah.
that's basically what they're looking at.
Okay,
something.
I got you.
Would this, are you familiar with what Mark is talking about? Would something similar to that, would that fit into that design?
It looks like it would.
Yeah.
Instead
Right.
of being a
Mhm.
pedestal like what they have out there.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
And it was
Yeah.
seconded.
Yeah, Colleen made it, Sandra seconded
Mhm.
it. Go ahead, just, what is the motion? Just restate the motion.
Recommendation to incorporate a Veterans Memorial Park, or Veterans Memorial at the Village Hall instead of Webster Park.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions?
Will we at some point get a determination as to how much financial support the veterans are going to contribute?
This
and
is
how
strictly
much-
to relocate it.
This
Yeah,
is all
this
this.
is just-
Okay.
To
Good enough.
locate the
Location.
concept.
The concept.
Yeah, we're going with concept.
Concept thing.
Well, and with the idea of this too is that if now something will actually get done, instead of something that's been on the works for 2 years with
Yeah.
nothing getting done.
I think it's great that we procrastinated on this, because I really think it's gonna be nice right out here. It'll be a
Sometimes-
nice addition to the village hall.
Wait long enough time will solve your problem. Something like that.
Sometimes it works.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And then the other thing that, Park Board would like, it's now time to update the 5-year Parks and Outdoor Recreation Plan. And also, you know, with going with a comprehensive plan, the Park Board would like to hire a consultant to assist with revising the 5-year Parks and Outdoor Recreation Plan, not to exceed $2,500, and the funds would be used from the Park Development Fund. And what we want to do is to have a plan that we're actually going to use and can come up with a vision and a mission for the parks and what is available, you know, for the future, and just to have someone help us figure out how to revise and update and implement our plan. And Susan Overson, who is on the park board, you know, has, you know, really thought that a consultant would be able to help us.
How much money do you have left in the Park Development Fund?
Gloria, how much do we have?
The only reason I asked the
Yeah.
question is, I happen to be very, very supportive of everything you guys are doing in the park fund. Historically, we used to fund that primarily as new developments came in. It's been quite a while since we've had a new development. Unless we, you know, annex some major chunk of land, which no one's anticipating, that's not gonna happen anymore. So we have a reasonably small park development fund. Whatever monies we spend for consultants or architectural drawings or having Tom go off and research legal is less that the park board will have to spend on stuff. Right? And as I look at the next, 2 to 3 years, you know, we're dealing with, you know, a very controlled levy, okay? Or take it to the, take it to referendum and say, let's spend more than that, folks. I think that isn't gonna fly too well. So I'm just raising the question in terms of, if you only got $100 in the bank and somebody says, give me 50, is that the
I
best?
never like to say an amount unless I know exactly what it is.
Is that, no, and I understand,
Yeah.
but it's like 40,000, 50,000?
I wanna say it's in the 40s.
Okay, we'll say it's in the 40s, okay. Is that the best, given that? And I don't know how to create more revenue streams for the park board that would allow you to do, because I know that some of the stuff you're talking about is really good. In fact, it's kind of exciting. And you brought a lot to that. That's my only reservation about spending $2,500 on a consultant and being one. Okay, I have great reservations sometimes about hiring one. Okay, especially when you're talking about putting together a vision statement. Okay, I'll gladly charge someone $2,500 to help you put together your vision statement. Okay, believe me. No, that's all I'm going to say about it.
Didn't we do something similar to this with the long-range plan? Wasn't there parks included in that?
There were little bits,
Little
but
bits?
there's not a lot about
Okay.
how to actually implement
It
and
wasn't a plan
what to
or
do.
details
No,
behind
it's
it.
more
Is
like,
it possible to borrow, let's, I don't know who does it well, okay? But some municipality who does it well. I've certainly never been afraid to borrow somebody else's public work like that, say, what did they do? And here's their plan, here's their strategy. Before I go out and spend cash to generate something new.
Mhm.
I like to at least have 2 or 3 or 4 models, that, oh, that's how they did it, that's how they did it. And have we looked at others?
No, not really.
I did want to mention, Kathy brought up a good point, that, because she's at the meeting, that, and I remember it in the meeting minutes, is that the consultant was going to help you to get grants to finance.
So that's going forward, right? Now,
Mhm.
Overson's comment was also the consultant will cost at least 2,500. My concern is that the consultant is gonna stay on after the, because it sounded like initially that person will help you create the vision, right? So now you get your vision statement down. Then you move into your long-term objectives, and you start moving into more specific tactics associated with your strategic plan. Depending on how long that's gonna take, where do you cap the consultant?
Yeah.
So the consultant doesn't walk away with $10,000.
Well, we were trying to just have them help us get a start. Since it's required to update this plan.
Have you interviewed any consultants in terms of what could they do, for example, when we were looking for architects? You know, the original motion was, let's spend some money to hire an architect and do this. We said, well, why don't we just interview architects? So we interviewed architects and said, okay, what can you do for us for $1.50? Okay? And then what would it look like long term? Would that make more sense at this stage?
It was also during that we asked them, and what's your fee?
Yeah, and then what would you charge us for all this?
Yeah, that makes sense. I could bring that back to the,
And I'm just raising the question because
well, those are good,
you have
those are good
limited funds and
points.
collectively the
Yeah.
village has a lot of limited funds.
Does
So-
the city of Hudson have anybody that they, or a group of people that?
Well, they have a park board like we do, which is very active. They may well have a very good model. Certainly, I've contacted people down at the city of Hudson, they've been just exceptionally helpful every time I've ever called. And very willing to share whatever they've got.
Do we need a levy?
Huh?
Or do we need a little area at the end of a levy? No, just kidding, just totally kidding. I think your concerns are valid with this, that we want to make sure that you get all of the tools necessary. I think it'd be great to get somebody to help with grants, but you need to get that sort of conveyed up front, where that starts and ends.
Well, we have a motion on the floor in a second for it. No, we don't. No, we don't actually have a motion on the floor. That was on the veterans.
I did have this one too.
There wasn't a second.
Okay. Is there a second to the original motion to hire a consultant for up to 2,500? If there is no second.
No, I'll
then-
give you a second.
Okay.
So you,
So we can discuss it.
yeah.
Well, we can continue discussing it.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, since we've all brought up, excellent points, I guess I'd be willing to just go back to the park board and ask them, tell them with the, the concerns about the cost and also the suggestion of, trying to interview somebody or a few people first and then, coming back.
I think it'd
the
be
next
helpful to.
meeting.
Consultant idea.
Yeah. Pardon me?
Who came up with the consultant?
Susan Overson.
I've never heard one use it one ever for that up here. I think it's shooting a little high. Be quite honest with you.
Well, unless you know exactly, I think at this stage, I don't have a very good
If the
feel.
guy gets paid on for whatever grants he can generate, great,
Mhm.
but I think it's, no offense, but I think it's shooting really high. The parks are rather anemic up here due to the lack of funds, not trying to.
Absolutely.
People, it's just, there's not a lot of money, and I find it rather odd to it just doesn't sound like a mix to hire a consultant for a vision statement with parks that really, in all likelihood, aren't gonna change a whole lot in the next couple of years. Just maintenance is a full-time job for us.
Any other comments? Okay.
Did you want to withdraw your motion, or?
Yeah, I'll withdraw it and go back to the park board and see if we can come up with something else.
And you'll agree to the withdrawal? Okay. Okay. All right, moving on, new business from the board and staff. Just trying to think. I was at the intergovernmental meeting last night, which is the, has representatives from Hudson, North Hudson, Troy, St. Joe, Town of Hudson, School District, County. It was not terribly well attended, so we didn't cover just an awful lot of topics. Probably the two most significant takeaways were the building permits are down everywhere significantly. One of the townships who last year at this time had issued like 103 has issued 7 this year, just to give you some comparison. So building is down. With respect to the levy limits coming out of the state, the governor has released his proposal, which would allow levy limits to go up by 4% instead of the current 2%. That will now, of course, go to Finance, Joint Finance Committee. That will then eventually go to both houses. So Sheila Harzover happened to be there last night, and I said, where do you think it's going to shake out? And her comment was the correct one, which is, who knows? Okay? It could be anywhere from 0 to 4 or 0 to 100. So you just can't speculate on that once those enter the conference and committee session. So. But I certainly would anticipate that there will continue to be some type of levy limits going forward. Okay. What else? That's about it.
Just a quick announcement, our deputy treasurer has had a little boy, and I know a lot of residents that come in and see Jennifer's smiling face, would like to know that, she's on maternity leave. And with that being said, if there's any residents here in North Hudson that would like to work, for a temporary time, well, fill in for her, we need someone with some accounting background, so please contact the village hall.
By morning.
Gloria, what name?
Carson Maurice,
Okay.
8 pounds, 10 ounces.
I move to adjourn.
No, we
Oh,
moved
there's-
to number 12.
Look, Mark.
To adjourn.
Turn the page.
All right.
I'd be
That's what I said too.
Beat out area.
a suggested motion.
I'm assuming everybody read the books, the materials that were given to them. I mean, we can dispense with going into closed session if we want to, and then just make the motion that is already in your books, because it's not that big of a deal. I don't think it's-
The item is limited to what's on the issue statement?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll make the motion to reinstate 21 and a half hours of compensatory time in the comp bank of Sergeant Mark Voles to be used during the remainder of the 2007 calendar year.
I'll second that. For anyone who's not familiar with this, as we get to the end of the year, if there are comp time associated with any employee, you record them and you log them. In Mark's case, from the time we logged it, like say December 5th, where you think you're done allowing comp time, just because of some shortages or other issues, he had to work more, so he ended up carrying more comp time. And it didn't show up in the books until just recently, so it's just a matter of making sure that we treat him fairly. All right, so we have a motion and a second to reinstate the omitted comp time hours. for Officer Bowles. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. With that, Mark makes a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Sandra agrees. No, the meeting is adjourned. Don't need-